Chapter 2239. Lu Ming's name had become a topic of conversation for many people, while waiting for Mount Eternal to ascend. The following days were relatively peaceful. Lu Ming and the others were cultivating in seclusion in their residence. As time passed, more and more people came to Alcate Ancient City. Almost every day, there were people trying to climb Mount Eternal. There were martial artists of all levels, from martial saints to heavenly emperors, but no one could climb Mount Eternal. Everyone could only wait patiently. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. On this day, Mount Eternal suddenly emitted a bright light. At the same time, a bell rang and spread throughout Alcate Ancient City. Everyone was alarmed and flew out of their residences. There's movement in Mount Eternal. Can we enter? Let's go and take a look. Countless people flew into the sky and flew towards Mount Eternal. Lu Ming and the others also woke up from their cultivation and followed the Gu clan leader and the others to Mount Eternal. For a time, Mount Eternal was surrounded by people. It was truly a sea of people. No one knew how many people there were. The temptation of the indestructible ancient scripture was too strong. With the indestructible ancient scripture, it was almost equivalent to immortality. As long as one did not turn into ashes, one could recover no matter how serious one's injuries were. It was equivalent to having many more lives. With the indestructible ancient scripture, one could go to many dangerous forbidden places and obtain treasures. Their cultivation could also improve quickly. Who wouldn't be tempted by such an ancient scripture? Many heavenly emperors had rushed over. Even the heavenly emperors could not remain calm. Countless people surrounded Mount Eternal and waited nervously. At this moment, a figure appeared in Mount Eternal. A burly figure slowly walked out from the depths of Mount Eternal. Many people could not help but widen their eyes. There's someone in Mount Eternal. Could it be that the indestructible emperor is not dead? That's impossible. Many people were shocked, and some were skeptical. Soon, a tall figure appeared in front of everyone. It was a middle-aged man. No, it's a puppet. A heavenly emperor powerhouse opened his mouth, seeing through the situation. This middle-aged man was a puppet. So it's a puppet. It should have been left behind by the indestructible emperor. Many people's hearts stirred as their gazes gathered on the puppet. The puppet with the appearance of a middle-aged man spoke with a loud voice that echoed in the surroundings. By the will of the immortal martial monarch, the immortal ancient scripture is about to be reborn. These words made everyone's heart beat faster, and their eyes lit up. The indestructible ancient scripture was about to appear. Many people's eyes were burning with passion. However, the immortal monarch has ordered that if you want to obtain the immortal ancient scripture, you have to pass a test. The middle-aged puppet continued. Dare I ask, what kind of test do you need to go through? A heavenly emperor powerhouse asked. It's very simple. First, let's start with the celestial emperors. Those who become celestial emperors within 10,000 years, please step into Mount Eternal. After passing the test, you will be able to obtain the indestructible ancient scripture. You don't have to think about deceiving me. I have my own ways to know if you broke through to the heavenly emperor realm within 10,000 years. South Central Puppet said. What? To become a celestial emperor in 10,000 years? How is that possible? Immediately, those heavenly emperor realm characters could not remain calm anymore. The others were also speechless. Becoming a heavenly emperor within 10,000 years, this condition was also too difficult. After reaching the martial emperor realm, it was extremely difficult to raise one's cultivation base. Some who were not talented enough might go into seclusion for more than 10,000 years. For some, it might take more than 10,000 years to raise one's cultivation base. It might even take tens of thousands of years, or hundreds of thousands of years, to become a celestial emperor within 10,000 years. This condition was too harsh. Looks like there isn't one. The middle-aged puppet sighed. Isn't this condition too harsh? Some celestial emperors were unwilling. This is the rule set by the sovereign. I have no right to change it. The middle-aged puppet said. Those celestial emperors sighed, very unwilling. Unfortunately, no one met the condition. Since there isn't one, then let's move on. Those who break through to the great emperor realm within 1,000 years can enter Mount Eternal for the test. The middle-aged puppet continued. Become a great emperor in 1,000 years? Those great emperor realm powerhouses also turned pale. Although becoming a great emperor in 1,000 years was not as exaggerated as becoming a celestial emperor in 10,000 years. And the difficulty was not that great. It was only relative. In essence, the difficulty was also astonishing. One by one, the great emperors looked at each other and finally shook their heads. No one could meet the condition. No one? Then let's move on. Those who become a true emperor in 100 years can enter Mount Eternal for the test. The middle-aged puppet continued. A true emperor in 100 years? Ha ha, isn't this tailor-made for me? Here I come. Dandan grinned from ear to ear, extremely excited. In a sense, Dandan had been reborn. This life was a new one. He had indeed become a true emperor in 100 years. In addition to Dandan, a few others also flew up. There were more than 10 of them. A lot of them became true emperors in 100 years. The 9 absolutes of the younger generation all became true emperors in 100 years. Some of the other geniuses are almost 100 years old. Look, there are at least 7 of the 9 absolutes. Someone on the side exclaimed. Lu Ming focused his gaze. True enough, among the dozen people, there were some who looked exceptionally young. They seemed to be in their 20s. There were both males and females. There were also some who looked to be in their 30s. These people had all become true emperors in 100 years. Lu Ming had learned that the 9 absolutes were the most outstanding geniuses of the younger generation in the heaven world. All of them had entered the true emperor realm. Countless people looked at them with envy. Being able to enter Mount Eternal meant that they had a chance of obtaining the indestructible ancient scripture. The group flew towards Mount Eternal. When they were close, the middle-aged puppet waved its hand, and a door of light appeared in the sky. You all can enter, the puppet said. Immediately, the group rushed into the door of light and disappeared. The test will take some time, wait patiently. Having said that, the puppet sat down cross-legged and closed its eyes to rest. The others waited quietly. More than 10 days passed, and the people who had entered still hadn't come out. Lu Ming took out an imperial weapon and sat on it, closing his eyes to comprehend the laws. Right now, he was only left with the law of life. Once he reached the first level, he would be able to break through to the martial emperor realm. Therefore, he had to seize the time. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. At this time, there was finally some movement in Mount Eternal. Mount Eternal emitted a bright light. After a slight tremor, more than 10 figures appeared outside Mount Eternal. They were the people who had entered Mount Eternal before. Everyone's eyes fell on them, full of anticipation. Did any of them obtain the indestructible ancient scripture? However, all of them were dejected and full of unwillingness. How is it? What's the situation inside? Many people began to ask. Chapter 2240. Dandan, what's going on inside? Did you get the indestructible ancient scripture? Lu Ming asked hurriedly. Don't ask me. I need some peace and quiet. Dandan pulled a long face, looking extremely depressed and unwilling. This guy must have failed. Chirp chirp. Bubbles mocked. Bullshit, how could I fail? Let me tell you. I'm the only one who succeeded. But that old guy immortal emperor is still holding a grudge, and won't give me the indestructible ancient scripture. I can't accept it. That old guy is so narrow-minded. Dandan shouted as if he had gone mad. Lu Ming, Bubbles, guying, and the others stared at him. Dandan really succeeded? He passed the test. Could it be that he was bragging? The others naturally heard Dandan's words, but they all looked at Dandan with disdain. If he failed, so be it. How dare he brag as if he knew the immortal emperor? No one believed Dandan's words. Why didn't the immortal emperor give you the indestructible ancient scripture? Lu Ming asked. He really believed that Dandan had passed the test. Dandan was one of the top 10 battle beasts, the world divine turtle. He had fully recovered his memories, and his combat power was shockingly high. If even Dandan couldn't pass, then no one could. That guy is narrow-minded and narrow-minded. Didn't I just take something from him in the past? Does he have to hold a grudge until now? Dandan was very unhappy and gritted his teeth. Took something from him? Lu Ming understood. This guy must have taken more than a few things. He must have offended the immortal emperor in the past. The others looked at him with disdain. This guy sounded like he was telling the truth. Wait, Lu Ming suddenly thought of something and sent a voice transmission to Dandan. According to what you said, the immortal emperor is still alive. He's dead, he's dead. He holds grudges, that's just my guess. Otherwise, why wouldn't he give me the indestructible ancient scripture? Dandan pouted angrily. Dandan, what's the content of the test? Lu Ming asked. No one has obtained the indestructible ancient scripture. Now those who have become martial emperors under the age of 50 enter the examination. Quickly, the middle-aged puppet urged, as if it didn't want the people who had entered before to reveal too much about the situation inside. He became a martial emperor before the age of 50. Mulin's and the others' eyes lit up. Let's go, Guing said. At this moment, there were already figures flying towards Mount Eternal. Becoming a martial monarch within the age of 50? If I haven't become a martial monarch yet, doesn't that mean I can't enter? No, let's give it a try. Thoughts flashed through Lu Ming's mind, but he didn't think too much and flew over as well. There were many people who had become great emperors under the age of 50. There were at least 1,000 of them. Back then, during the Battle of the 10 Earths, there were 100 or 200 people in the primordial realm who had become great emperors under the age of 50. As for the heaven realm, whether it was the cultivation environment or cultivation resources, it was better than the primordial realm. The inheritance was more complete. Moreover, it had been more than 5 years since the Battle of the 10 Earths. Naturally, there were more people who had become great emperors. Therefore, there were many people who had become great emperors under the age of 50 in the heaven realm. This was only a portion of them. There must be people who hadn't come. Otherwise, there would be more. In the crowd, Lu Ming saw Xing Xinhe and Yuan Xian, as well as Blue Cloud, Yin Shi and the others. They also saw Lu Ming. Senior, this person hasn't become great emperor. He wants to fish in troubled waters and sneak in. Blue Cloud suddenly shouted at the middle-aged puppet. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with a trace of gloominess. The middle-aged puppet looked at Lu Ming. Its eyes were bright, as if it wanted to see through Lu Ming. Blue Cloud, Yin Shi Xing Xinhe, and the others sneered. Lu Ming still wanted to sneak in. How was that possible? This time, he would definitely be punished by the middle-aged puppet. At this moment, the middle-aged puppet's eyes revealed a look of surprise. It seemed to be very surprised, then it nodded and said, his situation is special. He can go in. Ah, Blue Cloud, Yin Shi, and the others were dumbfounded. Damn it. Then they gritted their teeth. These idiots chirp chirp. Bubbles cried out, gloating over their misfortune. Blue Cloud and the others' faces were ugly as they rushed into the light door. Lu Ming, Bubbles, Mulin's, Guingzhong, and the others also entered the light door one after another. The next moment, Lu Ming found that he appeared on a platform. At this moment, there were at least 100 people gathered on the platform. In front of the platform, there was a wide road that went up diagonally. Is this place inside Mount Eternal? Does this road lead to the top of the mountain? Lu Ming thought. Then he looked in other directions. He found that there were a total of 9 platforms. In the middle of the platforms was a pitch-black abyss that separated them from each other. Each platform had a wide road that went up diagonally. 9 platforms, 9 roads. On each platform, there were more than 100 people. Thousands of people were equally divided among the 9 platforms. Bubbles, Mulin's, and Guingzhong were all on Lu Ming's platform. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the air. It looked exactly like the middle-aged puppet from before, but it was obviously just a shadow. For the first assessment, as long as you set foot on this road and walk to the end of the road, you will pass. Let's go. After he finished speaking, he disappeared. Whoosh, whoosh. Immediately, some people rushed onto the road and rushed forward, afraid that someone would beat them to it if they were a step too slow. Boom, boom. But just as these people rushed on the road, there was a rumbling sound. Above the road, thunderbolts appeared out of thin air and continuously struck towards them. Bang! Some people couldn't resist and retreated while coughing up blood. Some people blocked the thunderbolts and continued to go up. but the thunderbolts continued to strike at them. This road is indeed not that simple. Let's go up, Lu Ming said, and the few of them rushed on the road. This road looked very old, but it was very wide. There was no problem for hundreds of people to walk side by side. When they stepped on the ancient road, thunderbolts appeared out of thin air and struck towards them. Lu Ming waved his hand and destroyed the thunderbolts that struck towards him. The power of this thunderbolt is very weak. Lu Ming was surprised. He found that the thunderbolts that struck towards him were not strong at all and were easily blocked by him. At the same time, Bubbles, Guingzhong Mulans, and the others all blocked the thunderbolts. That's not right. It seems that people with different cultivation levels face different thunderbolts. This test is based on cultivation level. Lu Ming discovered a secret. Obviously, those with higher cultivation levels would not have an advantage here. The test here would adjust the power of the thunderbolts based on cultivation level. One would not be able to pass by relying on cultivation level. One had to rely on talent and combat strength that surpass one's level. No wonder the thunderbolts that struck Lu Ming were not powerful. It was because Lu Ming's cultivation level was not high to begin with. Chapter 2241. Lu Ming was naturally very relaxed. The lightning here did not pressure him at all. As for Bubble, it was a space-time spirit mouse, so it naturally did not feel any pressure. Lonely Shadow was heavy, but the top geniuses also did not feel any pressure. Mulans, who had inherited the legacy of a peerless expert, was also very strong. She also moved forward easily, but the others were not so relaxed. Many people were struck by the lightning until they vomited blood. Their bodies were charred black, and they had no choice but to retreat to the platform. Some people were unwilling and wanted to step on the air and rush up, but they found that it was impossible. There was a powerful force suppressing them, making them unable to fly. Many people could only stop, knowing that the indestructible ancient scripture was not fated with them. Some stronger geniuses continued to move forward, especially those who controlled many types of laws, and even those who controlled the strongest laws. Their speed was very fast, and they continued to move forward. Lu Ming, Bubble, and the other three moved forward at a uniform speed. The higher they went, the stronger the lightning became. Hiss! Lightning filled the sky, constantly striking Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body was surrounded by laws, setting up a defense. The lightning could not break through Lu Ming's defense at all. Bubble and the others also followed Lu Ming moving forward. Ah! With a scream, a young man was charred black by the lightning, and his body almost cracked. With a scream, his body was sent flying and fell on the platform, but he did not die. Here, at most, one would be seriously injured, and there would not be a situation of death. Every time they moved forward, someone would be sent flying. This ancient road was unknown how long it was. Lu Ming and the others walked for 3 days, and in 3 days, they were constantly bombarded by lightning. After 3 days, at least half of them were eliminated. After walking for 3 days, the lightning finally stopped. But before they could rejoice, when they continued to move forward, the temperature on the ancient road dropped sharply. Endless coldness drilled into their bodies, wanting to freeze them. As they continued to move forward, the coldness dropped even more, and the temperature dropped to an astonishing level. Some people could not resist, and their whole body was directly frozen, turning into an ice sculpture. Then with a bang, this frozen person was sent flying. He was probably thrown off the platform. Hoo-hoo, gusts of cold wind blew, chilling to the bone. There were actually snowflakes falling from the sky. Ah! A young man screamed miserably, as he was nearly cleaved in half by a snowflake. He was sent flying while vomiting blood. These snowflakes were sharper than the heavenly sabers. Every illusory snowflake was a powerful killing weapon. Everyone focused their attention to block the snowflakes. All sorts of attacks were launched, colliding with the snowflakes and creating clanging sounds. Some people couldn't withstand it and were blasted away. Others carried the snowflakes and continued forward. The further they went, the denser the snowflakes became. In the end, the sky was filled with flying snow, and its power was astonishing. Clang! Clang! Pieces of snowflakes landed on Lu Ming's defense law. They were like extremely sharp weapons that cut Lu Ming's defense law, emitting sounds of metal clashing against metal. At the same time, there was a bone-chilling cold that wanted to rush into Lu Ming's body, but it was blocked by Lu Ming's law power. There were fewer and fewer people who could make it here. Lu Ming discovered that the situation of the other 8 ancient roads was exactly the same as theirs. The tests they experienced were also the same. Just like that, after a few more days, they crossed this land of ice. However, what they faced was a land of fire. Ahead, the raging flames were astonishingly powerful. Every time they stepped into an area, the test they faced in the next area would become stronger. At this point, Mulan's became somewhat strenuous. After all, she had just become a martial emperor. Her comprehension of laws was slightly weaker, and she was already pushing it. As they continued forward, Mulan's face turned somewhat pale. "Senior Sister Mulan's, if you can't withstand it, don't force yourself," Lu Ming said. "It's fine. I can still endure." Mulan stubbornly raised her head and continued forward. Just like that, after a few more days, they crossed this area and arrived at a land of strong winds. The endless strong winds were like countless sharp weapons cutting them. The power was even more astonishing. At this point, even Lu Ming had to be serious. As for Mulan's, she finally couldn't withstand it anymore. With a muffled groan, her body retreated. A few wounds were cut on her body by the strong winds, and blood flowed out. "Senior Sister Mulan's, don't force yourself," Lu Ming shouted. In this place, they couldn't help each other. They could only rely on themselves. Mulan's gritted her teeth and finally sighed. She took a step forward and leaped backward. This was equivalent to admitting defeat. A force appeared out of thin air and pulled Mulan's. Her figure disappeared. Lu Ming, Bubbles, and Guingzhong continued forward. This road was very long, as if there was no end. As they moved forward, they experienced all kinds of tests. There were places full of poison, places full of curses, and also mountains of swords and sabers. Nearly a month later, Guingzhong finally couldn't withstand it and was blasted away. Only a few people were left on this road. It was the same for the other roads. There weren't many people left. For example, Blue Cloud and Yan Shi were eliminated. However, Lu Ming saw Yuan Xian and Tian Ming. They were still persevering. After a few more days, there were only 3 people left on Lu Ming's road. Lu Ming, Bubbles, and a beautiful woman. This woman's talent was also astonishingly high. The law she controlled was more than Guingzhong. Her mastery was more profound, which was why she could reach here. The other 8 roads were about the same. There were only a few people left on each road. The road has come to an end. Suddenly, the beautiful woman's eyes lit up. There was no road ahead. The ancient road had come to an end. Lu Ming's face also showed joy. At this time, a figure appeared again. "Congratulations to all of you for passing the first test. Next it's the second test." After saying that, the ancient road in front of Lu Ming's group suddenly wriggled. Then 3 platforms appeared. 3 platforms, 1 for each person. It was the same for the other ancient roads. There were as many platforms as there were people. Choose a platform at will, and then place your palm on it. The figure said. Lu Ming and the others stepped forward, chose a platform at random, and then placed their palms on the platform. The platform was smooth and cold to the touch. Buzz! When their palms were placed on the platform emitted endless light. Endless runes appeared on it, following Lu Ming and the others' palms and enveloping their bodies. Boom! At this moment, Lu Ming felt the world spinning. The surrounding environment changed and he came to a void. In the void, there were rays of light shining. Then, a ray of light suddenly rushed toward Lu Ming. It was like a sharp sword, slashing at Lu Ming. Lu Ming was shocked. He quickly burst out his saint power, controlled the law and slapped out. Boom! Chapter 2242. A ray of light flew towards Lu Ming, and was sent flying by Lu Ming's palm. However, the ray of light did not dissipate. After it was sent flying, it hovered in the distance and became even more radiant. This is the power of the law, and it's the law of chaos. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Whoosh! The ray of light that contained the law of chaos moved again. Like a flying sword, It crossed the void and slashed towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming manipulated the power of the law and was about to counterattack, but he was immediately shocked. In addition to this ray of light, there were other rays of light that rushed towards Lu Ming. Each ray of light was like a sword light and was extremely powerful. Lu Ming did not dare to be careless. The sword of death condensed in his hand. He circulated his saint force to the extreme and slashed out 9 times in an instant. Clang! 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 The sword of death collided with the 9 rays of light. It was like a battle sword colliding with each other. Sparks flew, and the sound of metal clashing was endless. The 9 rays of light were sent flying by Lu Ming. 9 laws, they correspond to my law. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. He could see that the 9 rays of light represented 9 laws. They were exactly the same as the 9 laws that Lu Ming controlled. The 9 rays of light floated in the distance and became more and more radiant. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then the 9 rays of light moved again. Their speed was even more astonishing than before. They came from 9 different directions and stabbed towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming's mind was highly focused. He used all 9 laws and surrounded his body. At the same time, the sword of death contained 7 laws. Whoosh! First, a ray of sword light stabbed towards Lu Ming from behind. It was a ray of sword light formed by the law of penetration. Its speed was extremely fast and exceeded the speed of a human's reaction. Lu Ming shouted and slashed behind him to block the ray of sword light. However, in other directions, the rays of sword light formed by the law attacked separately. They were like streams of light and were extremely fast. Lu Ming unleashed his 6 feathered divine wings and dodged with all his might. At the same time, he slashed out countless sword lights in all directions. Even so, the sword light still managed to slip through, breaking through Lu Ming's defenses and leaving a sword wound on Lu Ming's body. Blood flowed out, causing half of Lu Ming's body to go numb. Lu Ming hurriedly circulated the law of life, finally sealing the wound and healing it quickly. However, the attack of the nomological sword lights was far from over. It was just the beginning. Whoosh! Whoosh! Rays of light crisscrossed. 9 kinds of dazzling law light constantly shot towards Lu Ming. Their speed was getting faster and faster, and they could even autonomously evolve into sword moves. The power was even more astonishing. Lu Ming tried his best to block and evade, but he still couldn't completely block the attack. More wounds appeared on his body. This won't do. My attacks are too scattered. I can't completely block them like this. I have to scatter the law. Lu Ming's mind raced. Then, with a thought, the 9 types of law he controlled scattered and flew out separately. They turned into 9 rays of light and flew towards the sword light formed by the 9 laws. However, Lu Ming controlled 9 types of law at the same time. His speed was clearly much slower than his opponents. Not only did he fail to block them, but he also suffered more attacks from the sword light. Lu Ming could only use his 6 feathered divine wings to dodge, but he was still cut by a few sword lights, causing blood to flow. This method is right. My control of the law is too rusty, and I'm not proficient enough in using it. Otherwise, I would definitely be able to block it. Lu Ming dodged rapidly, while continuing to control the law to block. In the beginning, Lu Ming couldn't block at all because he was too rusty in using the law. It was difficult for him to keep up with his opponent's speed. However, as time passed, Lu Ming became more and more proficient in using the law. Finally, he could slowly keep up with his opponent's speed. 7 days later, more than half of the sword lights had been blocked by Lu Ming. After a month, Lu Ming would be able to block all the sword lights. Lu Ming felt that his use of the law had greatly increased. His understanding of each law had also deepened. For Lu Ming, there was no need to doubt the benefits. Now the power of the hammer of primal chaos and the sword of death that he had created had greatly increased. Lu Ming reckoned that he had finally reached the small success stage. Furthermore, it would also be of great help to Lu Ming when he wanted to create new divine abilities in the future. This was because Lu Ming was more familiar with the use of the various laws and had a deeper understanding of each law. Naturally, he could combine new divine abilities according to different laws. However, at this moment, the law that attacked Lu Ming suddenly changed. It was no longer a single sword light. Some laws turned into true dragons. Some laws turned into phoenixes. Some laws turned into cheilants. Some laws turned into golden-winged great rocks. 9 laws turned into 9 different divine beasts. Moreover, they were all top divine beasts that evolved different attacks. This way, it would be even more difficult for Lu Ming to deal with. This was because this was a more profound use of the laws. Lu Ming could not keep up, and could only be beaten passively. Immediately, he began to be injured again. Lu Ming began to try. He also evolved the 9 laws into different divine beasts to fight against the other party. However, this process was extremely difficult. It was even more difficult than before. Lu Ming did not give up, because he knew that this was the only way that would work. This time it took even longer. After Lu Ming resisted the 9 laws for 2 months, Lu Ming finally succeeded. Roar! Roar! Lu Ming evolved the 9 laws into different divine beasts to fight against the other party's 9 laws and kill each other. For a moment, it was difficult to determine the victor. My life law has finally broken through. Lu Ming's face was full of smiles. During this period of time, after constant resistance, his life law had finally broken through and reached the first level of perfection. The 9 laws that he had mastered had completely reached the limit of the first level. Moreover, he could use them with ease. Lu Ming felt that he could break through to the martial emperor realm at any time. This time, even if I don't get the indestructible ancient scripture, the harvest is already great enough. Lu Ming's smile became even wider. This time, the greatest harvest was not the breakthrough of the life law, but his use of the 9 laws had become stronger, and his understanding of the laws had deepened. These were all invisible wealth that could not be seen now. However, in the future, Lu Ming's cultivation process would have a great effect. In the future, Lu Ming's cultivation would have fewer detours. It would also be of great help to him in creating his own special abilities. This was an invisible wealth. Buzz! At this moment, the surrounding void began to vibrate. The divine beasts formed by the 9 laws collapsed and disappeared. The void also shattered like a mirror. Lu Ming felt the world spinning. In the next moment, he found that he had returned to the ancient road. His palm was still on the platform. At this moment, the ancient road under Lu Ming's feet changed. Originally, this ancient road had already reached the end. Now it suddenly extended all the way to the front. Success! Chapter 2243. Originally, this path had already come to an end, but now, the ancient path continued to extend, indicating that he had succeeded. Brother Lu Ming, you've succeeded, chirp chirp. Bubbles cried out excitedly. Lu Ming glanced around and found that there was no platform in front of Bubbles and the beautiful woman. The platforms had disappeared. At this moment, there was a shocking aura coming from other directions. Lu Ming looked around and found that it was the young geniuses of the other 8 paths. These people were looking at Lu Ming and the others with fiery eyes. The platforms in front of them had disappeared, leaving only one platform in front of Lu Ming. Bubbles, what's going on? Did you all fail? Lu Ming asked. Yes, the others all failed half a month ago. Once they failed, the platforms disappeared. You're the only one who persisted until now. Bubbles explained. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that he was the only one who had succeeded. Bubbles, let's go. Lu Ming smiled and stepped forward. As for Bubble and the beautiful woman, they also followed him. However, when Bubbles and the beautiful woman stepped onto the new ancient path, they were blocked by an invisible force, unable to take a step forward. However, it didn't affect him at all. Brother Lu Ming, Bubbles can't go up, chirp chirp. Bubbles pouted and was very unhappy. Let me help you. Lu Ming walked back and wanted to pull Bubbles up, but he found that even he couldn't go up. Brother Lu Ming, you go up alone. Bubbles said. In the end, Lu Ming could only give up and walk towards the ancient path alone. The young geniuses of the other 8 paths all looked at Lu Ming. Some sighed, some were envious, and some were jealous. Lu Ming walked forward and slowly disappeared from everyone's sight. My physical body and sacred power have improved by another level. As he walked, Lu Ming felt the changes in his body. Previously, when his life precept had reached the first level of complete mastery, It had tempered his body and saint energy. This was an ultimate precept, and its effect on the tempered body and saint energy was extremely shocking. His physical body had become stronger, and his saint energy had become denser and more condensed. Lu Ming's current saint energy, in terms of quality, was not inferior to the power of the world. In fact, it was even stronger. Lu Ming's battle prowess had undoubtedly increased a little. The rest of the road was very peaceful. Lu Ming quickened his pace. Soon, he reached the end of the road. Up ahead, there was a huge and majestic palace. In front of the palace was a white jade plaza. In the air above the white jade square, there was a ball of light that was incomparably bright. What is this? Lu Ming's gaze was attracted by the ball of light. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes and found that the core of the light was a small piece of glass-like fragment, sparkling and translucent. The moment Lu Ming stepped into the white jade square, the ball of light directly rushed toward Lu Ming at an astonishing speed. Lu Ming was shocked and instinctively wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The ball of light directly flew into Lu Ming's forehead and disappeared. Boom! At this moment, there was an additional fragment in Lu Ming's mind. This is the indestructible ancient scripture. Lu Ming was overjoyed. This was because as long as his soul power approached this fragment, he would be able to sense some information. Bam! At this moment, this fragment suddenly exploded and turned into a burst of energy that merged with Lu Ming's soul. Then, a piece of information poured into Lu Ming's mind. It's really the indestructible ancient scripture. Lu Ming felt that the indestructible ancient scripture seemed to have merged with him. As long as he willed it, the indestructible ancient scripture would appear in his mind, and he would be able to comprehend it. This was very different from what Lu Ming had expected. Previously, Lu Ming thought that the indestructible ancient scripture would be a scripture, or a jade talisman. He didn't expect that it would appear in such a form and directly enter his mind. Can I inscribe the indestructible ancient scripture? Thinking of this, a jade talisman appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Lu Ming wanted to inscribe the cultivation method of the indestructible ancient scripture into the jade talisman. However, when he wanted to inscribe it, he was at a loss. He didn't know where to start, and didn't know where to start. As long as he willed it, the cultivation method of the indestructible ancient scripture would appear in his mind. However, when he wanted to inscribe it, he couldn't grasp the charm. He felt that it was high up, and he didn't know where to start. Lu Ming was stunned. At that instant, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ming. It was the same figure that looked similar to the middle-aged puppet from before. Don't even think about inscribing it. Your cultivation is too weak. It's impossible. The middle-aged figure said. Senior, what's going on? Why is there only a seal? Lu Ming asked. Sigh, it's already impressive that there's a seal here. Back then, my master was besieged by the outsiders and died. My master was unwilling to let the indestructible ancient scripture go to waste, so he used his final means to summon a heavenly Tao seal to bring the indestructible ancient scripture back. At the same time, he gave me some instructions. Then, his final consciousness disappeared, leaving behind only the indestructible ancient scripture. The middle-aged figure said. I see. Lu Ming came to a realization. At the same time, he felt a sense of sorrow. Even an unbeatable cultivator like the indestructible martial monarch had fallen, leaving only a heavenly Tao seal behind. He had no choice but to do so. If not for that, the indestructible martial monarch could have left behind a scripture or a jade talisman. That would have been a better way to pass on his legacy. At the same time, Lu Ming also understood why he couldn't inscribe the indestructible ancient scripture. The indestructible ancient scripture was contained in the heavenly Tao seal of the indestructible martial monarch. A heavenly emperor was in harmony with the heavenly Tao. This was too far away for Lu Ming. Therefore, Lu Ming couldn't grasp it at all and couldn't inscribe it. Only when Lu Ming's cultivation was strong enough in the future could he inscribe the indestructible ancient scripture. All right, you've obtained the indestructible ancient scripture, and I've completed my mission. Now I'll send you out. After saying that, the middle-aged figure waved his hand. Lu Ming immediately felt a powerful force enveloping him. In the next moment, The void fluctuated and Lu Ming disappeared. He appeared outside the light gate outside Mount Eternal. At the same time, the youths in Mount Eternal also disappeared and appeared outside Mount Eternal. They're out. This time they've been out for 3 whole months. I wonder if anyone has obtained the indestructible ancient scripture. Many people's eyes lit up as they glanced at the thousands of young geniuses who had entered. All right, my mission has been completed. From now on, in accordance with the will of the indestructible martial monarch, Mount Eternal will be buried in the endless void forever. The middle-aged puppet on Mount Eternal said, then turned around to leave. Fellow Taoists, please wait. Chapter 2244. An expert stepped out and called out to the middle-aged puppet. Someone recognized that this was a heavenly emperor realm expert. What's the matter? The middle-aged puppet stopped and asked. May I ask if the indestructible ancient scripture has appeared? The heavenly emperor asked. The indestructible ancient scripture has already found its successor. The middle-aged puppet left behind a sentence, then took a step out, his figure disappearing from Mount Eternal. Boom! Following that, the incomparably huge Mount Eternal shook, emitting a terrifying pressure. The void directly collapsed, revealing a pitch-black endless void. Rumble! The majestic Mount Eternal roared and began to move, flying into the endless dark void and disappearing. Then, the cracked space healed and returned to its original state. Mount Eternal disappeared just like that. It would forever sink into the dark void. But at this moment, everyone did not have the time to lament the disappearance of Mount Eternal. Their attention was all focused on the middle-aged puppet's words. The indestructible ancient scripture had already found its successor. This meant that the indestructible ancient scripture had already been obtained by someone, and it was among these thousands of young geniuses. Everyone's gaze looked at these thousands of young geniuses, including those heavenly emperor realm experts. And those thousands of young geniuses were all sizing each other up. In the end, the gazes of more than a dozen young geniuses landed on Lu Ming. These dozen geniuses had all passed the first round of Mount Eternal's assessment, but they all failed the second round. They all saw that Lu Ming had passed the second round of assessment and continued forward. If anyone had obtained the indestructible ancient scripture, then it must be Lu Ming. Some people's eyes revealed a strong sense of jealousy. Which one of you obtained the indestructible ancient scripture? Stand out. A heavenly emperor powerhouse spoke, a wisp of aura emanating from his body, like the heavenly Tao, representing this world, making people's hearts tremble. Lu Ming frowned but did not speak. Who is it? Stand out. Another heavenly emperor stepped out. His eyes were like 2 stars, emitting a bright light, sweeping over Lu Ming and the rest. Your Majesty, I know who obtained the indestructible ancient scripture. Suddenly a young man spoke. Lu Ming looked over and saw that it was a young man with a buzz cut. Oh, who is it? A celestial emperor asked. It's him, Lu Ming. The short-haired youth pointed at Lu Ming. What? It's him. There was an uproar at the scene. Many people didn't believe it. Lu Ming, hadn't he not become a martial emperor yet? How could he have obtained the imperishable ancient scripture? What was going on? It's definitely him. Among all of us, he was the only one who managed to reach the end. If there's anyone who managed to obtain the indestructible ancient scripture, it would be him, another young man said. Following this, a few other young men pointed out that Lu Ming had obtained the indestructible ancient scriptures. He actually got it, damn it. Blue Cloud, Yin Shi, Hung Xingha, and the others all revealed looks of jealousy. At the scene, almost everyone's eyes fell on Lu Ming. Lu Ming, did you obtain the indestructible ancient scripture? Tell the truth, it's best not to lie. A celestial emperor looked at Lu Ming, his voice cold and aloof. It's the Lan family's celestial emperor. Nearby someone whispered. Lu Ming's eyes moved. It seemed that this celestial emperor came from Blue Cloud's family. That's right, I obtained the indestructible ancient scripture. Lu Ming frowned, but in the end he still admitted it. After all, so many people saw him pass the second round, but he was the only one who reached the end. As long as they weren't stupid, they would know that the indestructible ancient scripture must have been obtained by him. It was useless to deny it, so it was better to admit it directly. Many people's eyes lit up. As for the Lan family's celestial emperor, and some other celestial emperors, their eyes were incomparably bright, flashing with blazing flames. Now, hand over the indestructible ancient scripture, the Lan family's celestial emperor said. His eyes were incomparably fiery, staring at Lu Ming. Logically speaking, it was difficult for a celestial emperor to have such fluctuations in his heart. However, the temptation of the indestructible ancient scripture was too strong. That was an ancient scripture that was famous in the heaven realm, the strongest ancient scripture to protect one's life. That's right, quickly take it out. Another celestial emperor also said coldly. They had a high and mighty appearance. Their tone was cold and domineering. With an aggressive attitude, they wanted Lu Ming to hand over the ancient scripture. It was as if, once they opened their mouths, Lu Ming would have to do it. What kind of attitude is this? Dandan was unhappy and shouted. This is Lu Ming's opportunity, it belongs to him. He can give it to whoever he wants. The Lan family's celestial emperor glanced at Dandan coldly and said, Ridiculous, the indestructible ancient scripture is a treasure of the heaven realm. How can he swallow it alone? If he hands it over, it will increase everyone's combat strength. This is beneficial to the entire heaven realm. So what if that's the case? After all, this was obtained by Lu Ming through his own efforts. It belongs to him. Asking others to take out their own treasure. Is this your attitude? An aggressive look. Don't you know how to ask? Dandan shouted. Bold, what kind of person is the celestial emperor? Just ask him to take out an ancient scripture. Why is there a need to ask? Can he afford it? Blue Cloud shouted. The celestial emperor is nothing great. Dandan curled his lips. Bold, you dare to insult the celestial emperor. This is a capital offense. Blue Cloud roared. But Dandan curled his lips and directly ignored him. The Lan family's celestial emperor, as well as the other celestial emperors, swept a few cold glances at Dandan. With their eyesight, they could naturally see Dandan's original body. They did not say much, and continued to look at Lu Ming. Lu Ming, hand over the indestructible ancient scripture. The Lan family's celestial emperor opened his mouth, still looking high and mighty, as if asking Lu Ming to hand it over was a matter of course. Dandan gritted his teeth in anger. Seniors, if I can hand it over, I will definitely hand it over. Unfortunately, I can't hand it over at all. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said. Although he was angry in his heart, he understood that facing a celestial emperor powerhouse, he could only compromise and could not resist. Because the difference was too great, the other party could shatter his bones with a breath. Even if he had a celestial emperor's physical body, it was useless. Can't hand it over? What do you mean? The Lan family's celestial emperor and the other celestial emperors flashed a cold light in their eyes. Because when the immortal emperor was surrounded by the foreign races and his soul was scattered, he did not leave behind the indestructible ancient scripture at all. He only used a heavenly Tao imprint to carry the indestructible ancient scripture and flew back to Mount Eternal. What I obtained was the immortal emperor's heavenly Tao imprint, but the heavenly Tao imprint is too mysterious. With my current cultivation, I can't inscribe the indestructible ancient scripture, so I can't hand it over. Lu Ming explained. Nonsense, he's just spouting nonsense. Yanxi shouted. Yes, he doesn't want to hand over the indestructible ancient scripture, and wants to keep it for himself, so he found such a ridiculous reason. He's too selfish. Blue Cloud also shouted. Chapter 2245. Lu Ming glanced coldly at Blue Cloud and Yanxi then said, If you don't believe me, I can project the scene at that time. After saying that, Lu Ming looked at Dandan and said, Dandan, project the scene in my memory and let everyone see it clearly. All right. Dandan came in front of Lu Ming, then pointed a finger at Lu Ming's glabella. Dandan was using the soul-searching technique, then projected the scene in Lu Ming's soul. This wasn't difficult. As long as Lu Ming didn't resist, anyone could do it. Soon Dandan waved his hand, and a scene appeared in the sky. This scene was the scene of Lu Ming at the White Jade Plaza in Mount Eternal. In the sky, The resplendent heavenly Tao imprint flew into Lu Ming's glabella. Then, there was the scene that Lu Ming couldn't inscribe, as well as the middle-aged man's explanation. Everything was clear. Lu Ming didn't lie. How could this be? Damn it! Someone roared, revealing deep disappointment. The Lan family's heavenly emperor, and the others were the same, incomparably disappointed. And Blue Cloud, Yin Shi, and the others had ugly expressions. Unexpectedly, the truth was the same as what Lu Ming said. At this time Dandan finished, and the scene disappeared. Everyone, this is the truth. I can't hand over the indestructible ancient scripture now, Lu Ming said. If you can't hand it over, then we can only strip your soul, and strip the indestructible ancient scripture out. At this time, the Lan family's heavenly emperor said coldly. These words made Lu Ming's pupils shrink. And Dandan and Bubble were even more furious. Senior, this is too much. The heavenly Tao imprint has already fused into Lu Ming's soul. If it is forcefully stripped, Lu Ming's soul will definitely not be able to withstand it, and will be crippled as a result. The Gu family's family chief was finally unable to tolerate it any longer. The remaining small group of people couldn't bear it. But most of them had cold eyes. So what if I'm crippled? The Lan clan's heavenly emperor said coldly. He's a waste. He'll never be able to become a great emperor. It's a waste to keep the indestructible ancient scripture. Although it's impossible for everyone to see it, we can give it to a peerless genius. It's better than keeping it with him. Lan Cheng, as the heavenly emperor, aren't you ashamed of forcing a junior like this? At this moment a disdainful voice sounded. Many people were greatly alarmed. Who was it that actually dared to speak to the Lan family's heavenly emperor like this? At this moment, ripples appeared in the void. With a chi-la sound, the void cracked open, and a figure stepped out from the spatial crack. This person looked to be around 30 years old. He was dressed in white, and had a peerless charm. Seeing this person, Lu Ming's eyes suddenly widened, because he was too familiar with this person's appearance. Heavenly Emperor Hengyu. This person was actually Heavenly Emperor Hengyu. He looked exactly the same as Heavenly Emperor Hengyu. Lu Ming would never recognize him wrongly. After all, Heavenly Emperor Hengyu's physical body was still in Lu Ming's hands. Back then, Heavenly Emperor Hengyu told him that he had once been seriously injured, and his soul was almost destroyed. He did not expect that he would be able to reconstruct his physical body. Later, Heavenly Emperor Hengyu left his stone body in the primordial realm, suppressed in the Lotus world. And Heavenly Emperor Hengyu himself came to the Heaven realm, and fought in the Heaven realm. Lu Ming did not expect to see Heavenly Emperor Hengyu here. Hengyu, it's you. The Lan family's Heavenly Emperor's face fell. It was indeed Heavenly Emperor Hengyu. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Of course it's me. Why? Are you unhappy to see me? Heavenly Emperor Hengyu smiled faintly. Hengyu, you want to stop me? The Lan family's Heavenly Emperor said coldly. Nonsense. This little guy was able to obtain the indestructible ancient scripture. That's his own opportunity. Even if he can inscribe it, he can give it to whoever he wants. What's more, he can't inscribe it now. You, a dignified Heavenly Emperor, actually want to strip the indestructible ancient scripture from his soul? What a joke. Heavenly Emperor Hengyu said, his voice full of anger. Hengyu, I'm thinking for the Heaven realm. Now that the Heaven realm is besieged by the foreign races, we're in imminent danger. I don't know when the foreign races will break through our defenses. Anything that can increase the strength of the Heaven realm cannot be missed. And Lu Ming, a crippled body, keeping the indestructible ancient scripture is a pure waste. Stripping the indestructible ancient scripture and giving it to another sky pride is the most beneficial for the Heaven realm. Hengyu, I know that you and Lu Ming came from the primordial realm, but at this time, you can't be selfish. The Lan family's Heavenly Emperor said. Haha, selfish. Lan Cheng, who is the selfish one everyone knows. Let me ask you, if you strip it away, who do you plan to give the indestructible ancient scripture to? Heavenly Emperor Hengyu said. You don't have to care about this. Heavenly Emperor Lan said. With me, Hengyu here, let's see who can touch Lu Ming today. Heavenly Emperor Hengyu said, incomparably domineering. Hengyu, do you think you can stop us all by yourself? Heavenly Emperor Lan said coldly, his body bursting with a terrifying aura. At the same time, a few other heavenly emperors were the same, staring at Heavenly Emperor Hengyu with unfriendly eyes. Among them was Xinghe's master, the gray-robed elder. In addition, the Yin family's heavenly emperor was also among them. Do you really think we're easy to bully? At this time a rough voice sounded. The void then split open, and two more figures walked out. A middle-aged burly man and an old man stood beside Heavenly Emperor Hengyu, both of them exuding a terrifying aura. They were both heavenly emperors. What? Your heavenly emperor of the primordial realm wants to rebel and betray the heaven realm first? Heavenly Emperor Lan roared, somewhat fearful. Heavenly Emperor Hengyu and the other two heavenly emperors who came out later were both from the primordial realm, and their strength was very shocking and terrifying. Especially Heavenly Emperor Hengyu, the Lan family's heavenly emperor, was very fearful. Ridiculous, the few of you can't represent the heaven realm. Heavenly Emperor Hengyu sneered. Then let's fight, and see if you can protect Lu Ming. I really don't understand. What's the use of you protecting a crippled body? You don't see the big picture. Xinghe's master, the gray-robed elder, said coldly and stepped out, very domineering. Ha ha ha. At this moment, Lu Ming laughed loudly, his laughter full of ridicule. Kid, what are you laughing at? The Lan family's heavenly emperor swept his cold gaze at Lu Ming. Now when they were talking to each other, Lu Ming actually dared to laugh so wantonly. This was disrespectful to them. I'm laughing at you all. Lu Ming pointed at the Lan family's heavenly emperor, the gray-robed elder, the Yin family's heavenly emperor, and the others. What? Many people were shocked. Lu Ming actually dared to laugh at the heavenly emperors. This was audacious and courting death. The Lan family's heavenly emperor and the others revealed a cold light in their eyes. A terrifying aura erupted, but it was blocked by Heavenly Emperor Hengyu and the others. Kid, you better make it clear. The Lan family's heavenly emperor said coldly. You all keep saying that it's a waste for the indestructible ancient scripture to stay with me. In my opinion, this is the funny thing. It's a waste for the indestructible ancient scripture to be given to others. Only by staying with me can it play its greatest role. Chapter 2246. The indestructible ancient scripture can only be maximized with me. It would be a waste to give it to others. Lu Ming's voice spread across the entire place, filled with strong confidence. Ridiculous, ridiculous, you're just a cripple. You'll never become an emperor. I don't know where your confidence comes from. Blue Cloud couldn't help but retort immediately, full of sarcasm. That's right, the indestructible ancient scripture. It's better to give it to any of us than to keep it with you. You're just a cripple. Do you understand? Yanxi also shouted. Cripple? Hee losers, you're not even comparable to a cripple. I don't understand. How can you still have the face to shout in front of me? If I were you, I'd kill myself. What's the point of staying in this world? To embarrass myself? Lu Ming scolded. Yes, you're right. These guys were stripped naked by me, and still have the face to come out and see others. I'm really impressed. I'm not even going to hang myself. I'm impressed by them. Dandan screamed. You. Blue Cloud and Yanxi's faces were flushed red. They were so ashamed that they wanted to find a hole to hide in. You're sharp-tongued. Facts have proven that you're just a cripple. The Lan family's heavenly emperor said coldly. Alright, since that's the case, I'll challenge all of them here today. Whoever can defeat me will get the indestructible ancient scripture. At this moment, Lu Ming spoke, his gaze sweeping across the young supreme talents. Everyone was shocked. Lu Ming actually wanted to challenge all the supreme talents. How bold. Is he crazy? A few months ago, Lu Ming defeated Yuan Xian, Blue Cloud, and Yin Shi, showing their powerful combat strength. However, Yuan Xian, Blue Cloud, and Yin Shi were only 4-star Void Emperors. However, the young supreme talents present were at least half of the Heaven Domain's supreme talents. Among them, there were 5-star Void Emperors, 6-star Void Emperors, and even 7-star Void Emperors. Although Lu Ming's battle prowess was strong, he was definitely not a match for these people, because the difference between them was too great. How arrogant. A young genius said coldly, wanting to immediately attack and teach Lu Ming a lesson. Alright, that's what you said. If you lose, we will extract the indestructible ancient scripture from you. You don't interfere. The Lan family's heavenly emperor said coldly. The indestructible ancient scripture was contained in the immortal monarch's heavenly Tao seal, and it had already fused with Lu Ming's soul. If it was forcefully removed, Lu Ming's soul would definitely be severely damaged or even disintegrate. But the Lan family's heavenly emperor naturally would not go and consider this point. What did Lu Ming's life and death have to do with him? Heavenly Emperor Hung Yu gave Lu Ming a glance, then nodded his head and said, "Then do it like that." The matters of the young people, leave it to the young people to resolve themselves. Retreat. Following that, the Lan family's heavenly emperor spoke, and a wave of energy spread out. Everyone retreated, leaving enough space for Lu Ming. Who wants to fight first? Blue Cloud, Yanxi, aren't the two of you very arrogant? Come on. Lu Ming looked at Blue Cloud and Yanxi. The two of them looked even worse, but they knew that they were no match for Lu Ming. They would only be asking for a beating if they went up. Why would they go up? Arrogant, I will defeat you. A cold voice rang out, and a young man with short hair stepped out and arrived in front of Lu Ming. This was the young man who first pointed out that Lu Ming had the indestructible ancient scripture. He was extremely jealous, and at the same time extremely greedy. He wanted the indestructible ancient scripture for himself. Now that there was a chance, he naturally rushed out first. You came at the right time, Lu Ming said coldly, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He did not know this person, but because of his greed, this person wanted to put Lu Ming in danger. How could Lu Ming not take revenge? It was a good opportunity to beat this person up. Bang! Lu Ming immediately made his move. He stepped into the void and rushed toward the young man with short hair like a cannonball. His speed was extremely fast. The young man with short hair snorted and retreated quickly. At the same time, his hands quickly formed a seal, and a figure suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ming. This was a figure clad in iron armor. He was more than 2 meters tall and held a huge iron sword in his hand. He slashed at Lu Ming. The sword chi whistled, and its power was extremely shocking. Lu Ming immediately threw out a palm, using 5 types of laws. Clang! Lu Ming's palm collided with the armored figure. The armored figure was sent flying by Lu Ming, and Lu Ming's attack was also blocked. This is an undead spirit. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. The armored figure just now was not a living creature at all, because it did not have the slightest vitality. It was an undead spirit that was full of death aura. At this time, the young man with short hair continued to form seals, and 2 more armored figures more than 2 meters tall appeared in the air. They were all wearing iron armor and holding thick battle swords. These are puppets? No, they are summoned. This person has mastered the summoning laws and death laws. This is a kind of divine ability. Lu Ming's mind raced. In an instant, he figured out the crux of the matter. The young man with short hair had mastered several laws, including the death laws, which was one of the strongest laws. Combined with the summoning laws, he could summon undead spirits to fight. At this time, 3 undead spirits charged at Lu Ming at the same time. Their iron swords were flying across the sky with shocking power. Whoosh! 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 Lu Ming pointed 3 times in a row, and 3 finger forces blasted at the 3 armored figures, but they were all blocked. The 3 armored figures were sent flying, but Lu Ming's finger forces were also blocked. 5-star Void Emperor. Lu Ming could see that the young man with short hair was a 5-star Void Emperor and had mastered 3 laws. This was because the undead spirits he summoned not only contained the death laws, but also other laws. The stronger the summoner's cultivation, the stronger the undead spirits that were summoned. The more laws they contained, the stronger they would be. Therefore, the combat power of these 3 undead spirits was very shocking. However, it was not over yet. The young man with short hair did not stop summoning. Figures kept flashing in the air, and in the end, 9 armored figures charged at Lu Ming. Lu Ming is going to lose. Blue Cloud sneered. The young man with short hair could continuously summon undead spirits, and he could exhaust Lu Ming to death. As long as Lu Ming was defeated, he would be stripped of the indestructible ancient scripture. At that time, his soul would be injured, and he would become an idiot or die. At the thought of this, he felt happy. With such strength, you want to challenge all the supreme talents? You are overestimating yourself. Yan Shi also said coldly. At this time, the 9 armored figures had already arrived in front of Lu Ming. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming blasted out 9 palms in a row, fighting against the 9 armored figures. His body was forced to retreat. Lose for me. The young man with short hair looked excited. Is that all you have? Then it's over. At this time, Lu Ming said indifferently. A giant hammer appeared in his hand. The Hammer of Chaos. Chapter 2247. Lu Ming used the Hammer of Chaos, which contained 6 types of laws. Chaos, Array Doctrine, Tools Doctrine, Devour, Force, Penetration. The 6 types of laws merged with each other, and the 6 different powers complemented each other, bursting out with shocking power. Boom! Lu Ming raised the Hammer of Chaos, and Saint Power flowed into it continuously, making the Hammer of Chaos bigger and bigger, and smashed forward. Bam! An armored undead spirit was the first to bear the brunt of the attack, and was hit by the Hammer of Chaos. Its body exploded into pieces of armor, and bone fragments flew everywhere. Then, Lu Ming smashed out with the Hammer of Chaos again. The second armored undead spirit followed in the footsteps of the previous one, and was smashed into pieces. The short-haired young man's face changed, and his hands moved even faster to form seals. The void rippled, as if it was connected to a mysterious world. Then a roar was heard, and a huge creature appeared in the sky. It was a real dragon, or more accurately, a huge dragon skeleton, but it was covered in armor, and it emitted a strong aura of death. It was an undead dragon skeleton. Kill! The short-haired young man roared. This undead dragon skeleton was his strongest trump card at the moment. The remaining 9 armored undead spirits waved their battle swords, and charged toward Lu Ming. Roar! The dragon skeleton of the undead spirit roared. It stepped on the void and wriggled its body, charging toward Lu Ming. Break for me! Lu Ming's body glowed, and surging Saint Power flowed into the Hammer of Chaos. The Hammer of Chaos grew bigger, and finally it became as big as a mountain and swept out. This time, 3 armored undead spirits were smashed into pieces by Lu Ming's Hammer of Chaos. Bam! Lu Ming stepped on the void, and the Hammer of Chaos continued to swing out. It was a complete suppression. Every time he smashed out, there would be an armored undead spirit that was smashed into pieces by Lu Ming. In a few breaths, all 9 armored undead spirits were smashed into pieces. At this moment, a huge dragon claw grabbed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming took the opportunity to swing the Hammer of Chaos at the dragon claw. With a loud explosion, the gigantic undead spirit dragon skeleton shuddered, and was forced to retreat. Lu Ming followed. Holding the hammer with both hands, he launched a torrential barrage of attacks. The battle prowess of the short-haired young man was very strong. He was a 5-star Void Emperor, and had mastered 3 types of laws. One of them was the most powerful, while the other 2 were King Dao laws. The strongest law was the Law of Death, while the other was the Law of Monarch, the Law of Summoning. Both of these laws had been cultivated to the 2nd level. In addition, he had also cultivated the Law of Corrosion to the 1st level of perfection. 3 types of laws combined to form a wondrous divine ability that could summon terrifying dead spirits. Their battle prowess was extremely strong. However, Lu Ming now had 9 types of precepts that had reached the 1st level of complete mastery. After being tempered by the 9 types of precepts, his body and Saint Power had reached an astonishing level. In addition, Lu Ming's current use of the laws had deepened greatly. Using the Hammer of Primal Chaos that he had created himself, its power was even more astonishing than before. With 6 types of laws erupting, Lu Ming's strength was completely above the buzz-haired youth's. Boom! 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 The Hammer of Primal Chaos continuously bombarded the undead skeletal dragon. The undead skeletal dragon was no match for it, and retreated continuously. Its huge body kept shaking, and even one of its dragon claws was blasted apart. Hold on. The buzz-haired youth roared. The power of the universe in his body kept surging into the undead skeletal dragon to strengthen its power. However, it was ultimately unnecessary. Boom! Lu Ming held the hammer of primal chaos with both hands. The hammer of primal chaos was like a small mountain as it slammed heavily into the undead skeletal dragon. The undead skeletal dragon shone brightly. The death chi mixed with the law of corrosion roared as it pounced toward Lu Ming. A few dragon claws continuously clawed out and collided with the hammer of primal chaos. Bam! Crack! The dragon claws of the undead skeletal dragon exploded and turned into broken bones that flew in all directions. Then, the hammer of primal chaos vibrated and bombarded the skull of the undead skeletal dragon. The skull of the undead skeletal dragon was covered with a layer of thick metal armor. However, under the bombardment, the metal armor burst open. The skull of the undead skeletal dragon was covered with cracks like a spider web. Bam! Lu Ming leaped up and stepped on the skull of the undead skeletal dragon. With a stomp, the skull of the undead skeletal dragon exploded. Then, the entire dragon skeletal dragon exploded. The buzz-haired youth's body shook violently. He spat out mouthfuls of blood, and his face turned pale. Swoosh! Lu Ming borrowed the momentum of the buzz-haired youth's stomp, and his body was like a swan. In an instant he pounced in front of the buzz-haired youth. The buzz-haired youth was shocked and wanted to admit defeat. However, Lu Ming did not give him the chance to do so. He slammed the hammer down on him. Plop! The buzz-haired youth was directly hit by the hammer. His body fell down like a meteorite and landed heavily on the ground. The ground rumbled and dust filled the air. A large pit was formed on the ground. The buzz-haired youth was lying in the pit like a dead dog. His body was bloodthirsty, and he was twitching nonstop. This was after Lu Ming had shown mercy. Otherwise, he would have been smashed to death by Lu Ming. Trash like you still wants the indestructible ancient scripture. Isn't it a waste to give it to someone like you? Lu Ming said disdainfully. He looked at the Lan family's heavenly emperor, Lan Cheng, and his voice was full of mockery. Lan Cheng's face was gloomy, and his heart was filled with anger. In his opinion, Lu Ming was just an ant. An ant dared to provoke him and ridicule him. He was too bold. However, there were so many people here. With his status as a heavenly emperor, he naturally could not take action. He could only suppress his anger and snort coldly. This guy is so strong. Blue Cloud, Yin Shi Hung Xingha, and Yuan Xian's eyes were gloomy. Tian Ming, who was dressed in white, stood in the void with a thoughtful look in his eyes. The others were also shocked. For many people, this was the first time they had seen Lu Ming take action. They could not help but widen their eyes in disbelief. He was just an emperor to be. Not only could he fight against a martial emperor, but he also crossed so many small realms. The short-haired young man was a 5-star illusionary emperor. Moreover, he was not an ordinary 5-star illusionary emperor. He was a top genius. With such a big gap, he was still defeated by Lu Ming. This was simply unheard of. It had never happened before in history. Regardless of whether Lu Ming could become an emperor or not, such combat strength had created history. Who else wants to fight? Lu Ming looked around with a strong fighting spirit. I'll do it. Immediately a voice sounded. A black-robed young man with long hair stepped out. He was very fast, as if he was shuttling through the void. In the next moment, he suddenly appeared not far away from Lu Ming. It's Ming Sheng. He's going to take action. It is said that Ming Sheng has reached the 6-star illusionary emperor level. His comprehension of the laws is even more profound. This time, he will definitely defeat Lu Ming. That's right. Ming Sheng's core law is the space-time law. When combined with other laws, the divine skills evolved are unpredictable, and his strength is unfathomable. Chapter 2248. Ming Sheng had black hair and was dressed in black. He was very handsome. He stood in the void, but his body was constantly changing, as if he was not in this space-time. Space-time law. Lu Ming's eyes flickered slightly. Space-time law was the most unpredictable and mysterious of all. It was one of the most difficult laws to deal with among the top 10 laws. If it was combined with other laws, The super skill that was formed would be very mysterious. Lu Ming was highly focused. He was very alert and did not dare to relax. Swoosh! Suddenly, Ming Sheng's figure moved. In a flash, he pounced on Lu Ming at lightning speed. However, halfway through his attack, Ming Sheng's body suddenly disappeared. Oh no! Lu Ming was taken aback. Without hesitation, the hammer of chaos swept toward the back. The huge hammer of chaos was as big as a mountain. It filled the sky and the void kept exploding. However, it did not hit Ming Sheng. He was not behind Lu Ming, but above Lu Ming's head. Boom! Ming Sheng took a step forward. A terrifying force penetrated the void and formed a terrifying killing force. It bombarded Lu Ming's head at an astonishing speed. At this moment, Lu Ming unleashed the six-feathered divine wings. A pair of transparent wings flapped, and his figure disappeared from the spot. He appeared 1,000 meters away and dodged Ming Sheng's attack. At the same time, the hammer of chaos in Lu Ming's hand disappeared. Although the hammer of chaos was powerful, it was not fast. It was not suitable to deal with someone like Ming Sheng. Interesting. Let's compete in speed. Ming Sheng saw that Lu Ming had dodged his attack and sneered. His body flashed again and disappeared from the spot. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. The six-feathered wings flashed, and he also left the spot. The speed of the two was shockingly fast. They kept flashing in the void. Some of the weaker cultivators could not even see their movements. What a fast speed! Ming Sheng has mastered the space-time law. It is understandable that he is fast. Why is Lu Ming's speed so shocking? His divine ability is amazing. It can actually keep up with Shang Mingsheng's speed. Many of those with higher cultivations opened their eyes wide, carefully watching the scene, afraid that they would miss the slightest detail. The speed of the two was too fast, so fast that they disappeared. If one's cultivation was not high enough, one would not be able to see them at all, only an empty void. Lu Ming and Ming Sheng flashed through the air at an extremely fast speed. Within a few minutes, the two of them had flashed thousands of times, but they hadn't exchanged a single blow. Whoosh! Suddenly, Ming Sheng's figure appeared. He didn't move, and his face was gloomy. In terms of speed, his forte, he actually couldn't suppress Lu Ming. He felt a little embarrassed. Ming Sheng stopped, and so did Lu Ming. Speed is useless in front of me. Ming Sheng said coldly as a powerful aura emanated from his body. He is indeed a six-star Void Emperor. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. Ming Sheng's cultivation level was higher than that of the short-haired young man. He was a six-star Empty Emperor. Mountain River Palm. Ming Sheng rushed to the sky, and then slammed his palm down. An incomparably huge palm print was formed. As soon as the palm print appeared, it quickly evolved and finally turned into a world of mountains and rivers. One could see mountains and lakes inside. It was like a world, suppressing the entire void and pressing down on Lu Ming. The scene was extremely terrifying. In the face of such an attack, there was no way to dodge at all. One could only take it head-on. The hammer of chaos appeared in Lu Ming's hand again, and it grew rapidly. Lu Ming raised the hammer of chaos with both hands and swung it out, blasting it towards the world of mountains and rivers, as if he was going to blow it up. Boom! There was an earth-shattering roar, and the world of mountains and rivers shook violently. However, the hammer of chaos in Lu Ming's hand shook even more violently. He felt an incomparably powerful force surging towards him. It was as if he was really going to shake a world. His body shook violently, and he retreated continuously. The blood in his body was surging. What a powerful force. This person has already mastered 4 types of laws, and 3 of them have already reached the 2nd level. Lu Ming took a deep breath and stabilized the surging blood in his body. The 2 of them exchanged a blow, and Lu Ming could feel Ming Sheng's strength. It was very shocking. His cultivation had reached the level of a 6-star Empty Emperor, and he had mastered 4 types of laws, 1 of which was the strongest and 3 of which were the laws of kings. Among them, the space-time law and 2 of the laws of kings had already reached the 2nd level. Moreover, this person's divine skill was made up of 4 types of laws, which was very shocking. Although some people had mastered many types of laws, such as someone who had mastered 5 types of laws, their divine skill was only made up of 3 types of laws. and they could not unleash the full power of their divine skill. For example, although Lu Ming had mastered 9 types of laws, his divine skill was not made up of 9 types of laws. It could be said that Ming Sheng's combat strength was very shocking. He was several times stronger than the young man with short hair. Not bad to be able to take a blow from me. Let's see how many blows you can take. Second palm of mountains and rivers. Ming Sheng said coldly. His body emitted a bright light, and he blasted out another palm. This time, 2 mountain river worlds were formed, and they pressed down on Lu Ming. The power was even more shocking. Come on! Lu Ming roared, and the power of his physical body was activated to the extreme. The rich and condensed saint power poured into the hammer of chaos, and the hammer smashed towards his opponent. There was another shocking roar, and the force rolled out. A figure was pushed back, and it was Lu Ming. This time he was still at a disadvantage, and he was pushed back. Again, Ming Sheng shouted, and he attacked continuously. This time, 3 worlds were formed, and they pressed down on Lu Ming. This time, Lu Ming also unleashed his full power, and he displayed 7 types of laws. Chaos, Devour, Force, Penetration, Array Dao, Alchemy Dao, and Equipment Dao. Other than the death and life laws, which were not integrated, Lu Ming used all his strength. The power of the Hammer of Chaos was even more shocking, and it clashed with the mountain river worlds. This time, Lu Ming directly pierced through his opponent's mountain river worlds, and Ming Sheng was pushed back. Hiss hiss hiss. At the scene, there was a series of gasps. Lu Ming could actually fight with Ming Sheng, and even push him back. This was too terrifying. Ming Sheng had the cultivation of a 6-star Void Emperor. In addition, with Ming Sheng's talent, it was easy for him to defeat an ordinary 7-star Void Emperor. However, Lu Ming could push back Lu Ming. What did this mean? This meant that Lu Ming could also defeat an ordinary 7-star Void Emperor. Lu Ming was only a boundary emperor, but he could defeat an ordinary 7-star Void Emperor. This was equivalent to crossing an entire realm. Many people looked at each other. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, it would be hard for them to believe that all this was true. I heard that Lu Ming also mastered 2 types of supreme laws. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know, mastering 2 types of supreme laws is too incredible. In my opinion, it might be true. Didn't you notice that he has already used 7 types of laws? This is already incredible. I wouldn't be surprised if he mastered another type of supreme law. However, even if he mastered 2 types of supreme laws, it won't have much effect on increasing his combat strength. This is because it's impossible for supreme laws to merge, and it's also impossible to construct divine powers. Chapter 2249. In all directions, countless spectators were discussing animatedly. Ming Sheng's face was extremely ugly. With his cultivation, it was absolutely embarrassing for him to be defeated by a boundary emperor. Quadruple mountain river palm. Ming Sheng roared, looking down from above. His palms continuously struck out. This time, there were 4 consecutive mountain river palm prints that blasted towards Lu Ming. Such power was extremely shocking. Lu Ming's face was also extremely solemn, feeling a terrifying pressure. He pushed his cultivation to the extreme. At the same time, he held the Hammer of Chaos in his right hand and gripped the void in his left hand. A battle sword was formed. It was the Sword of Death, also formed by 7 types of laws. The Law of Death. Lu Ming has really mastered 2 supreme laws. Someone exclaimed. Hearing about it was one thing. Seeing it with their own eyes was another. At this moment, seeing Lu Ming display 2 supreme laws with their own eyes, the impact was too great for them. With such talent, it's a pity that he can't become an emperor. If he can become an emperor, how amazing would it be? Some heavenly emperors sighed. The Lan family's heavenly emperors, Yin family's heavenly emperors, and Xing He's master looked a little gloomy. Break for me. Lu Ming held the Hammer of Chaos in one hand, and the Sword of Death in the other. He soared into the sky and charged towards his opponent. Boom! Boom! The Hammer of Chaos and the Sword of Death continuously blasted towards his opponent. The world was boiling, there were continuous explosions, and the void was constantly exploding. Bang! The opponent's first mountain river world collapsed in an instant, followed by the second, and then the third. In the end, there was a shocking roar as Lu Ming broke through the fourth mountain river world. However, Lu Ming himself was also blasted away by the terrifying force, flying tens of thousands of meters away. His blood and qi were in turmoil, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. However, Mingsheng was not in a good state either. His palm force was broken, and Lu Ming's terrifying attack power also rushed towards him, causing his figure to frantically retreat. This time, they were evenly matched. Lu Ming's figure stopped, and the 6 feathers gallop flapped fiercely. His figure was like a bolt of lightning, drawing an arc in the air and charging towards Mingsheng. Fourth layer of mountains and rivers palm, Mingsheng shouted, and once again used the quadruple mountains and rivers palm. The quadruple mountains and rivers world formed and pressed down on Lu Ming. The two of them collided once again, and then quickly retreated. It's said that when the mountain river palm is cultivated to the highest level, one can cultivate the 9-layer world of mountains and rivers. It's extremely terrifying. Now it seems like Mingsheng has only cultivated to the 4th layer. That's right, but the 4-layered mountains and rivers palm is absolutely amazing. I didn't expect Lu Ming to fight Mingsheng to this extent. Some people sighed. Even though they saw it with their own eyes, they still felt that it was inconceivable. Lu Ming and Mingsheng's battle prowess were on par. The two of them exchanged 10 moves in a row, and the outcome was still a draw. Mingsheng's expression became uglier and uglier. Using the quadruple mountain river palm, consumed a shocking amount of his power of the world. If this continued, he wouldn't be able to hold on. No, I can't lose. How can I lose to a quasi-emperor? I must defeat him and obtain the imperishable ancient scripture. Mingsheng roared in his heart. At this moment, Mingsheng's aura grew even stronger. The power of the world within his body seemed as though it was about to combust. Mingsheng was going to go all out. Many people had the same thought. Lu Ming's eyes also became serious. 5-layered mountains and rivers palm. Mingsheng shouted, his long hair fluttering. His palm seemed to be pushing the world forward, slowly pushing it out. As his palm pushed out, layers of mountain river world formed one after another. In the end, a total of 5-layered mountains and rivers world were stacked together and blasted toward Lu Ming. With Mingsheng's cultivation, it was impossible for him to use the 5-layered mountains and rivers world. If he forcibly used it now, he would suffer a backlash and be seriously injured. But now, in order to defeat Lu Ming, he could no longer care about that. Lose for me. Mingsheng's eyes flashed with a sinister look. The 5-layered mountains and rivers world was much stronger than the 4-layered mountains and rivers world. This move was enough to completely crush Lu Ming and defeat Lu Ming. The imperishable ancient scripture was his. Mingsheng roared in his heart. At this moment, Lu Ming stood quietly in the void without moving. The 5-layered mountains and rivers world enveloped the void and pressed down on Lu Ming. Under the 5-layered mountains and rivers world, Lu Ming's figure was as small as an ant. Lu Ming is going to lose in the end. Some people sighed. Previously, Lu Ming should have reached his limit. If he had reached his limit, he wouldn't be a match for this move. Only Dandan had a sneer on his face. He knew that Lu Ming still had a trump card that he hadn't used yet. Rumble. Heaven and earth roared and the void trembled. The 5-layered mountains and rivers world pressed down, getting closer and closer to Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming raised his hands, holding the hammer of chaos in one hand and the sword of death in the other. Now Lu Ming actually put his hands together and merged the hammer of chaos and the sword of death. At the moment of merging, Lu Ming held the sword with both hands, and a bright light burst out. Then, a long spear appeared in Lu Ming's hands. This long spear contained 8 types of laws: chaos, death, devour, force, penetration, array Dao, smithing Dao, and alchemy Dao. Infinite dragon spear. Lu Ming shouted. This was the name he gave to this move. It was the same name as a long spear he used in the early days. The long spear pierced through the void, and a shocking spear light pierced through the void, stabbing towards the 5-layered mountains and rivers world. Bang! 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 The 5-layered mountains and rivers world exploded one after another. In an instant, the 5-layered mountains and rivers world completely collapsed, and a terrifying power surged towards Mingsheng. Mingsheng screamed and flew out. His body was almost torn apart. His face was pale, and he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. He had barely used the 5-layered mountains and rivers world, and was already injured. Now he was swept by the aftermath of Lu Ming's 5-layered mountains and rivers world. His injuries were even more serious, and he was extremely dispirited. At this moment, Lu Ming's arm was also covered with wounds and blood was flowing out. The long spear in Lu Ming's hand disappeared. He circulated the life law, and the wounds on his arm quickly healed. It's much better than before. Lu Ming was delighted. Previously, when he was in the Gu family, he had merged the chaos law and the death law to form a divine power. The power that burst out was stronger, and his injuries were more serious. But now it was much lighter. This was because his usage of laws in the eternal ancient city had improved a lot compared to before, and it was easier for him to fuse 2 supreme laws. In just a few breaths, the wounds on Lu Ming's arm had healed. This scene was witnessed by some powerful existences. That's the life law. A great emperor's eyes were wide open. His voice trembled and was full of disbelief. Oh my God, it's really the life law. This little guy not only mastered the chaos law and the death law, but he also mastered the life law. Some experts could not help but exclaim. Chapter 2250. The scene was in an uproar. There were shocked discussions, shouts, and exclamations. Even the heavenly emperors found it difficult to maintain their calm and were shocked. Oh my God, a boundary emperor. Not only can he control many types of laws, but also 2 types of supreme laws. Now he actually controls 3 types of supreme laws. 3 types of supreme laws, how did he do it? Chaos and death laws are the main offensive laws, while life laws can heal the body. This is simply a perfect combination. If he can become an emperor, who can be his opponent at the same level? Even the most amazing genius since ancient times can't be his opponent. Many people roared, shocked beyond words. One person controlling 2 types of supreme laws was already shocking enough. Now he actually controlled 3 types of supreme laws. Chaos, death, life. This was simply a perfect combination. Impossible. Blue Cloud, Yin Shi, Hung Xinghe, Yuan Xian, and the others shook their heads frantically. Their eyes were full of disbelief. They found it hard to believe that all of this was true, and it was also difficult to accept. Even if he controls more laws, what's the use? If he can't become an emperor, his combat strength is ultimately limited. In the future, I will definitely be able to suppress him. They roared in their hearts. They could only use this reason to comfort themselves. Otherwise, their martial arts hearts would be unstable. Ming Sheng's eyes also revealed a look of disbelief. Do you still want to fight? Lu Ming's gaze fell on Ming Sheng, his fighting spirit soaring like a rainbow. In just a short while, Lu Ming's injuries had already healed, and his fighting spirit rose to the peak. At the same time, a large pile of origin stones appeared beside Lu Ming. Lu Ming used the devouring law, and a large pile of origin stones turned into origin qi and entered Lu Ming's body. The saint power that Lu Ming had just consumed was quickly recovering. What a freak! Many people sighed. Lu Ming's combination of laws was simply invincible, like a war machine. Ming Sheng was a little sad, shaking his head and retreating. He was already seriously injured, and it was impossible for him to be Lu Ming's opponent. Lansheng, what do you say now? Lu Ming's strength is obvious to all. Heavenly Emperor Hung Yu looked at Heavenly Emperor Lansheng. Humph! No matter how many laws you have mastered, no matter how strong your battle prowess is, what's the use if you can't become a martial emperor? His power is limited. Any true emperor can suppress him. Lansheng coldly snorted, his face still filled with disdain. He wanted to hold on to this point and not let go. If he can't become a martial monarch, everything is meaningless. Therefore, it's a waste to leave the indestructible ancient scripture with him. It needs to be taken away and given to stronger geniuses. Lansheng continued. Haha, what stronger heaven's pride. These people won't even be able to withstand a single blow. I'm invincible against those of the same level. Lu Ming laughed heartily. His arrogance was exposed, and he was brimming with confidence. He was invincible. Even in front of the heavenly emperor, it was the same. Many people were shocked. They looked at the young man in front of them and sighed. This young man was quite impressive. Regardless of whether it was his wisdom, determination, talent, or heart of martial arts, they were all top-notch. Unfortunately, fate was messing with him, preventing him from achieving the martial monarch realm. Once he became a martial emperor, he would probably shock the world. And, at this moment, Lu Ming continued to speak. His eyes were like stars as he stared at the Lan family's heavenly emperor and said, "You've repeatedly said that I can't become a martial emperor. What makes you think that I can't become a martial emperor? What makes you think that I can't become a martial emperor?" Many people were stunned by his words. Could it be that Lu Ming still thought that he could become a martial emperor? However, in the history of the Heaven Realm, there were people who had mastered many laws below the martial emperor realm, but none of them could become a martial emperor. No one was an exception. Later on, there was no lack of peerless experts who studied it and came to the conclusion that if one mastered many laws below the martial emperor realm, their path of martial arts would be broken, and they would never be able to become a martial emperor. Ha ha ha. Lan Cheng himself was stunned at first, then he laughed out loud, full of mockery. Those below the martial emperor realm who have mastered many laws cannot become a martial emperor. This has been the truth since ancient times, and no one has been able to break it. You still want to become a martial emperor? How ridiculous. Who is the ridiculous one? Lu Ming immediately retorted, his eyes bright. In the primordial age, the heaven realm was full of the primordial cultivation system. At that time, no one thought that the cultivation system of the laws would appear. Later on, it was still created by people. It was unprecedented and led directly to the great Tao. The ancients couldn't do it, but it doesn't mean that the future generations can't do it. It doesn't mean that no one can do it. If you don't even understand this principle, you are a heavenly emperor in vain. Lu Ming's voice spread throughout the whole place, full of boundless heroism and unyieldingness, unyielding to fate. Many people were greatly touched. Indeed, if the ancients couldn't do it, would the future generations be unable to do it? Lan Cheng was speechless for a moment, and at the same time, his heart was filled with cold, killing intent. Lu Ming dared to contradict him, putting him in a difficult position. If it wasn't for the fact that they were in public, he would have slapped Lu Ming to death. How dare you, Lu Ming, a junior, talk to the heavenly emperor like that? This is disrespect, and you deserve to be punished. At this moment, a cold voice sounded, and a young man stepped out. This young man was wearing a black iron armor, and his whole body was filled with a sharp aura. It's him, Yebing. He is known as the strongest void emperor of the younger generation in the heaven realm. Yebing. He is going to make his move. Immediately, someone recognized this young man. Disrespect. Ridiculous. Some people also need to have something worthy of respect. Those who are not worthy of respect, why should we respect them? Of course, there is an exception for those who deliberately flatter others. Lu Ming said faintly with a double meaning. Firstly, he said that Lan Cheng was not worthy of respect. Secondly, he said that Yebing was just flattering others. Impudent, I will teach you how to behave. Yebing was furious, and a terrifying aura erupted from his body. Boom. Yebing directly made his move. He took a step forward, and continued to close the distance between him and Lu Ming. At the same time, his palm glowed, and with a wave of his hand a small black pagoda appeared. It grew rapidly and suppressed Lu Ming. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. This small pagoda was not an emperor weapon, nor was it a physical body. It was a kind of divine skill, condensed from the laws and the power of the realm. Lu Ming's hammer of chaos formed in his hand, and he threw it out. Dong! A dull roar sounded, and Lu Ming's body shook violently. He was forced to retreat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. What a terrifying power! Lu Ming's eyes were a little serious. From the other party's black pagoda, there was a shocking power that far exceeded Lu Ming's. 7-star Void Emperor, and at least 4 laws that have reached the second level. After one move, Lu Ming could only roughly judge the other party's strength. Is that all you have? Let's see how many moves you can take, Yebing said indifferently. With a wave of his hand, the giant pagoda suppressed Lu Ming again. At this moment, the hammer of chaos in Lu Ming's hand disappeared, and it was replaced by a long spear. A long spear that contained 8 laws. Buzz! Chapter 2251. The infinite dragon spear that Lu Ming used contained 8 types of laws. It was Lu Ming's strongest attack, and its power was astonishing. The spear struck the giant tower, and the tower shook continuously before it was sent flying. However, Lu Ming was also sent flying. His hands were covered with wounds, and he spat out another mouthful of blood. However, Lu Ming circulated the law of life, and his injuries recovered quickly. Humph! After being blocked by Lu Ming, Yebing was displeased and snorted coldly. He was known as the strongest Void Emperor among the younger generation in the Heaven Domain. Even many Void Emperors who had lived for a long time were not his match. Again, Yebing's palm shone even brighter, and another weapon appeared. It was a vase, and it was not a physical object. It was also formed by the law and the power of the world. Kill! Yebing bellowed. The huge pagoda once again pressed down on Lu Ming. At the same time, the mouth of the vase actually emitted a dazzling radiance. Immediately after, the mouth of the vase emitted beams of sword aura. The endless sword chi was incomparably sharp, and it directly cut through space, slashing towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming held the spear in his hand, and within the spear, the law of primal chaos and the law of death constantly clashed, releasing a terrifying power. Boom! The spear swept out again, blocking the attack of the giant tower. However, the sword chi followed with great power. Although Lu Ming hurriedly blocked with his spear, he could not block it at all. Boom! 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 With a series of explosions, the spear in Lu Ming's hand collapsed. He quickly retreated, but he was still swept by the sword chi. His body was almost torn apart, and sword wounds appeared. The destructive power constantly drilled into Lu Ming's body, destroying Lu Ming's physical body. Even with the law of life, Lu Ming's injuries could only slowly recover. 5 types of law of second level. The strongest one is the law of nothingness, and 4 types of law of king. At this time, Lu Ming finally saw Yebing's strength clearly. Yebing had already comprehended 5 types of nomological laws, and had reached the second level. Coupled with his 7-star empty emperor cultivation, his combat power was terrifying. Lu Ming's battle prowess is ultimately limited. Someone shook his head. Haha, he's finally going to be defeated. If he doesn't become a martial emperor, he's still trash. Blue Cloud, Yin Shi, and the others burst into laughter. This is the limit of your strength. If you can't become an emperor, you're only an ant, unable to withstand a single blow. I, on the other hand, can break through and become a true emperor at any time. At that point, I can kill you with a single thought. Lu Ming, accept your fate. The immortal ancient scripture is not something you can control. Yebing coldly spoke, his tone filled with arrogance. Becoming an emperor, isn't it just becoming an emperor? Then let's become an emperor. Lu Ming opened his mouth and at last he let out a long howl. Boom! A shocking aura erupted from Lu Ming's body. The law of life circulated rapidly, and the injuries on his body healed rapidly. At the same time, Lu Ming controlled the 9 types of nomological laws and entered the Saint Heart. The 9 types of nomological laws were arranged in a circle. An ultimate nomological law was separated by 2 king nomological laws, followed by another ultimate nomological law, followed by another 2 king nomological laws. The 9 types of nomological laws were separated from each other and reached a balance. Endless radiance burst out as the Saint Heart began to evolve. That's right, Lu Ming was about to break through to the martial emperor realm. Lu Ming initially wanted to find a place to consolidate his foundation before breaking through to the martial emperor realm. That way, he would have a greater chance of success. However, Lu Ming understood that he had no choice but to break through to the martial emperor realm in advance. Once he broke through to the martial emperor realm, he would be a peerless genius with unparalleled potential. Let's see how Lan Cheng and the others would deal with him. Boom! At this moment, Lu Ming's body emitted a dazzling light. A terrifying force burst out and sent Yebing's weapon flying. Breakthrough, he wants to break through. Someone yelled. He's courting death, he's courting death. He wants to break through to the martial emperor realm by force. In the end, he will definitely end up like the ancients. His saint heart will shatter, and his body will be torn apart. He's overestimating himself. Does he really think that he can create a miracle? Lan Cheng and the others spoke one after another, their voices full of disdain. Yebing stopped in the distance, and did not continue to attack. Now Lu Ming was breaking through to the martial emperor realm with all his might. The power of the nomological laws surged, and the power was so shocking that Yebing could not get close to him at all. Lu Ming, Heavenly Emperor Hung Yu, and the other heavenly emperors from the primordial realm looked worried. They all thought that Lu Ming was forced to break through to the martial emperor realm in such an environment to fight for a chance of survival. However, what they did not know was that Lu Ming was confident. It was not that he did not have any confidence at all. Lu Ming, you must succeed. Mulan's clenched her fists. Although she knew that Lu Ming had obtained the method that Gu Lingtian had left behind, she was still very nervous. In addition, the people from the Gu family were the same. After all, the method that Gu Lingtian had left behind had never been used by anyone before. No one knew whether it would succeed or not. Lu Ming will definitely succeed. Dandan's eyes were bright as he stared at Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming had undoubtedly become the focus of everyone's attention. Everyone's eyes fell on Lu Ming. Many people who had no enmity with Lu Ming still held a glimmer of hope that Lu Ming would succeed, even though they felt that the chances of him succeeding were very small. They hoped that Lu Ming would succeed. He was already so amazing before becoming a martial emperor. Once he became a martial emperor, his future achievements would be limitless. It would definitely be beneficial to the heaven realm. At this moment, Lu Ming's saint heart was also undergoing a shocking change. 9 types of nomological laws formed a ring shape and burst out with boundless power. The bright light was like a small sun. The 9 types of nomological laws formed a wonderful balance. The power was connected to each other and seemed to be evolving towards the heart of the realm. This time, no power leaked out to tear Lu Ming's saint heart and body apart. This was because the 9 types of nomological laws were in a balanced arrangement, and their power cancelled each other out. If Lu Ming only controlled 2 types of supreme nomological laws, the Qingdao nomological law would not be able to form a balance. The power would burst out and tear Lu Ming's saint heart and body apart. Buzz! The 9 types of nomological laws vibrated, as if they were about to merge into one. At this moment, thin threads that were thousands of times thinner than a hair spread out from here, and extended to various parts of the saint heart. These were nomological threads. They were extremely small and invisible to the naked eye, but they formed the foundation of a world. The nomological threads spread to the entire saint heart. Every place was covered by nomological threads. Rumble! When the nomological threads covered the entire saint heart, the saint heart began to tremble and undergo earth-shaking changes. Some parts of the saint heart were collapsing, but they immediately recovered. The saint heart began to transform into a small world. With the heart of the realm as the core and the saint heart as the outer shell, a small world would evolve. Rumble! Chapter 2252. Above Lu Ming's head, a large patch of dark clouds suddenly appeared in the sky. Sizzle, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the dark clouds. Countless bolts of lightning swam in the dark clouds like silver snakes. A powerful aura spread out, filling heaven and earth with an oppressive aura. Tribulation clouds, it's tribulation clouds. Someone yelled. How is this possible? How can there be tribulation clouds? Could it be that Lu Ming is about to break through? Didn't they say that he can't break through? Below the martial emperor realm, one can control many laws. If he can't break through, Why would tribulation clouds appear? People kept shouting, shocked to the extreme. The appearance of tribulation clouds meant that a great tribulation of heaven and earth was about to descend. This was the Emperor Tribulation. As long as one passed the Emperor Tribulation, they would be able to enter the martial Emperor realm. However, didn't Lu Ming control many laws below the martial Emperor realm, making it difficult for him to become a martial emperor? Everyone, including the heavenly emperors, thought that it was impossible for Lu Ming to break through. If he forcefully broke through, the different laws would trigger a power that would tear his saint heart and body apart, killing him on the spot. In history, no one had been able to trigger a heavenly tribulation. Triggering a heavenly tribulation meant that one was about to break through. Heaven and earth sensed that a new martial emperor was about to be born. Only then would a heavenly tribulation appear. This meant that Lu Ming had surpassed all the ancients and walked in front of them, creating a miracle. Impossible, this is impossible. Blue Cloud, Yin Shi, Hung Xinghe, Yuan Xian, and the others yelled crazily, unable to believe all this. Not only them, but the Lan family's heavenly emperors, Yin family's heavenly emperors, and Hung Xinghe's master were also in disbelief. Ha ha, great! Heavenly Emperor Hung Yu laughed heartily. Mulin's, Guingzhong, Bubbles, and the others were ecstatic. I knew it, this kid can do it. Dandan whispered. Could it be that he can really create a miracle and break through to the martial emperor realm? The other heavenly emperors of the heaven realm spoke, full of anticipation. With Lu Ming's talent, if he really broke through to the martial emperor realm, it would be a miracle. His future achievements would be immeasurable. Rumble. Thunder rumbled as more and more dark clouds gathered in the sky, becoming thicker and thicker. In the blink of an eye, the area covered by the tribulation clouds exceeded 100 li. However, it did not stop at all, and continued to expand rapidly. 200 miles, 300 miles. It didn't take long for the tribulation clouds to reach 1,000 li. However, the tribulation clouds didn't stop there. Instead, they were still rapidly expanding. 2,000 miles, 3,000 miles, 10,000 li, 20,000 li. Very quickly, the tribulation clouds reached tens of thousands of miles wide. Heaven and earth turned pitch black, completely blocking out the sunlight. Even a corner of Alcate City was covered by the tribulation clouds. The oppressive and terrifying pressure was terrifying. Retreat, retreat quickly. The 4 types of onlookers frantically retreated, not daring to be enveloped by the tribulation clouds. This was no joke. Lu Ming's tribulation clouds covered an area of tens of thousands of miles. That was too terrifying. Once they were enveloped by it, they would trigger their own tribulation. This was especially true for martial emperors. Every 333,333 years, they would face another great tribulation. However, if they entered someone else's tribulation cloud, their great tribulation would be triggered in advance. If they were not prepared, it would be extremely dangerous. Even the heavenly emperors retreated, distancing themselves from the area. Although the heavenly emperors didn't face any great tribulation, no one knew what would happen if they entered someone else's tribulation area. If they really attracted a heavenly tribulation, the consequences would be unpredictable. Everyone retreated. Many people in the Alcate ancient city also retreated. However, it was far from over. Lu Ming's tribulation clouds were still expanding. 50,000 li, 60,000 li, and finally, it stopped when it reached a radius of 100,000 li. The surrounding people retreated again and again. Heavens, a heavenly tribulation of 100,000 li. This is too terrifying. How powerful would such a heavenly tribulation be? The more heaven-defying a person is, the more terrifying the heavenly tribulation will be. Many people widened their mouths in shock. They knew that Lu Ming was too heaven-defying. Before becoming a martial emperor, he had already mastered 9 types of laws, 3 of which were the strongest. This was something that no one in history had ever done. That was why his heavenly tribulation was so abnormal. Back then, Lu Ming's martial emperor tribulation only covered a radius of 200 li. For ordinary people, the heavenly tribulation would only cover a radius of about 1,000 li. However, Lu Ming's heavenly tribulation was 100,000 li. Let's see how you can survive such a powerful heavenly tribulation. Die under the heavenly tribulation. Blue Cloud, Yin Shi, and the others prayed secretly. Rumble. The heavenly tribulation clouds covering 100,000 li were too terrifying. The sky was dark, and the sun was completely blocked. Endless lightning swam in the clouds like silver dragons, roaring endlessly. It was very depressing. Many people couldn't help but retreat. Under the heavenly tribulation clouds, they felt that it was difficult to breathe. There was a great horror that made people go crazy. Between heaven and earth, Lu Ming was the only one standing under the vast tribulation clouds, looking up at the sky. Come, there was no fear in Lu Ming's eyes, only anticipation. As long as he could survive the heavenly tribulation, he would be able to break through and become a martial emperor. From then on, he would enter the last realm of the martial path. This was a realm that all cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. Rip! All of a sudden, a bolt of lightning struck down like a divine sword. It tore the space apart and struck Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming did not move, nor did he try to block it. He just let the lightning strike him. This was only the first heavenly tribulation. If Lu Ming had to use all his strength to block this heavenly tribulation, there would be no need for him to continue. Pooh! The lightning struck Lu Ming and dissipated. Lu Ming did not feel anything. Too weak. Come again. Lu Ming looked up at the sky and muttered, "Rip! Rumble!" Afterward, more thunderbolts struck Lu Ming's body continuously. However, Lu Ming stood in the air, not moving at all. He was only resisting with the strength of his physical body. Rumble! Dark clouds rumbled in the sky, and the sound of thunder made one's heart beat faster. Then, more thunderbolts struck from the dark clouds and blasted toward Lu Ming. This time, the color of the lightning was a little darker than the previous ones. The second heavenly tribulation had arrived. Lu Ming was still resisting with his physical body. Not enough, it's not powerful enough. After being struck by the thunderbolt, Lu Ming's body only felt a little numb. He wanted to use the thunder tribulation to temper his body, but the thunder tribulation only had a slight effect. Soon after, the second heavenly tribulation was over. However, the third heavenly tribulation had arrived. The third heavenly tribulation was the purple fire tribulation. The lightning was covered in a layer of flames. Its power was a few times stronger than the second heavenly tribulation. Lu Ming had also experienced the third heavenly tribulation when he was undergoing the martial dominator tribulation. However, he was now undergoing the martial emperor tribulation. Although it was the same kind of heavenly tribulation, its power was vastly different. Chapter 2253. Purple Fire Lightning Tribulation. Every thunderbolt was covered with a layer of purple flames. That was the heavenly fire. Its temperature was shockingly high, and it could burn everything. Boom, boom, boom. Purple fire lightning streaked across the sky and continuously struck Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body was covered with lightning, and at the same time, a layer of flames shrouded Lu Ming. Chi thunderbolts and flames continued to attack and burn Lu Ming's body. I feel it. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with excitement. He let the lightning and flames attack his body, and he did not resist at all. His current physical body was too strong. The third stage of the lightning tribulation could not hurt him at all. Instead, it could help him refine his physical body and increase its strength. This freak. Someone whispered. This was the third stage of the lightning tribulation. But looking at Lu Ming's state, it was obvious that he was relaxed and did not even use any laws. The third stage of the lightning tribulation was a life and death tribulation for ordinary people. They could be struck into ashes by the lightning tribulation at any time. But for Lu Ming, it was just an appetizer. I wonder how many stages of the lightning tribulation Lu Ming will face. It's hard to say. Before becoming an emperor, he has mastered many kinds of laws, and even 3 kinds of supreme laws. Moreover, there has never been an emperor tribulation. Such a person is completely defying the heavens. I'm afraid the lightning is also abnormally terrifying. That's right. The tribulation clouds cover 100,000 miles. Looking at the situation, it's at least the 7th stage of the lightning tribulation, or even higher. God! How terrifying is the 7th stage of the lightning tribulation? Today is an eye-opener for me. The surrounding people looked on with fear and trepidation. Lu Ming was completely submerged in the sea of lightning and bathed in the purple heavenly fire. His physical body was constantly being tempered, becoming sparkling and translucent like a saint weapon. He was even stronger than before. Soon the purple fire lightning tribulation disappeared. The 3rd stage of the lightning tribulation had passed. However, the tribulation clouds were rolling and the lightning was roaring. The aura was even more oppressive. Hiss! Bolts of lightning tore through the void and struck towards Lu Ming. The tribulation clouds, spanning a radius of 50,000 kilometers, did not even need to be charged up. Right after the 3rd lightning tribulation, the 4th lightning tribulation appeared, not giving the person undergoing the tribulation any time to catch his breath. This time, the lightning actually had 4 colors. There were 4 different colors of lightning, and the surface of each lightning was covered with different things. Some were covered in flames, some were covered in gales, some were covered in ice, and some were covered in sharp golden auras. This kind of lightning tribulation was several times stronger than the pure purple fire lightning tribulation. One lightning tribulation after another instantly drowned Lu Ming. This time, Lu Ming still did not use any nomological laws to resist. He only used his physical body to resist, borrowing the power of the thunder calamity to temper his body. When the lightning tribulation struck Lu Ming's body trembled slightly, and he felt a stinging pain. Alright, that's the feeling. Lu Ming's eyes lit up, revealing a crazed expression as he let the lightning strike him. Wounds began to appear on Lu Ming's body, and blood flowed out. The power of the lightning seeped into the wounds and circulated throughout Lu Ming's body, trying to destroy Lu Ming's body. However, Lu Ming's physical body was too strong. Even without using the law of life, his recovery ability was amazing. As soon as his physical body was destroyed, it immediately recovered. At the same time, it made his physical body even stronger. The 4th tribulation was passed in the same cycle. As soon as the 4th lightning tribulation passed, a goshawk flew down from the tribulation clouds. It was completely formed by lightning, and it pounced on Lu Ming. The 5th lightning tribulation, the manifestation of lightning. Lu Ming had experienced all these lightning tribulations when he was undergoing the martial royal tribulation, so he was very familiar with them. Boom! This time, Lu Ming did not purely rely on his physical body to resist. Instead, he used his saint power. Each lightning tribulation was more terrifying than the last. The 5th lightning tribulation was undoubtedly more powerful. If he only relied on his physical body, he would probably be severely injured. With the help of his physical body and saint power, Lu Ming threw a punch at the goshawk. Bam! The goshawk was sent flying by Lu Ming. However, there was still a trace of lightning energy that flowed through Lu Ming's fist and into Lu Ming's body. However, this lightning was harmless to Lu Ming. It could be used to refine his physical body and saint power. It even flowed into his dantian and saint heart to help the evolution of the heart of the world and the small world. The heavenly tribulation was both a tribulation and an opportunity. Those who could pass through it would obtain endless benefits from the heavenly realm. Those who could not pass through it would be struck into ashes. Screeching sounds were heard. Goshawks constantly formed in the tribulation clouds and pounced on Lu Ming. In addition to the goshawks, there were giant tigers, real dragons, and phoenixes. Each was more powerful than the last, and there were more and more of them. Come on! Lu Ming let out a long howl. Both of his fists bombarded the divine beasts that were transformed from thunderbolts. Bam! 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 In the void, there were continuous explosions. One by one, the divine beasts formed by lightning were sent flying by Lu Ming. Every time he collided with a divine beast formed by lightning, the power of lightning would flow into Lu Ming's body and be used by Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt that his physical body had become stronger. His saint power had become more condensed, and the evolution of the heart of the world had become faster. However, more and more divine beasts rushed out of the tribulation clouds. In the end, there were 81 of them. 80 divine beasts formed by lightning surrounded Lu Ming and attacked him fiercely. This put a lot of pressure on Lu Ming. Lu Ming gritted his teeth. He still did not use the law to resist. He only used his physical body and saint power to resist. This way, he could obtain the greatest opportunity from the heavenly tribulation. If he used the law to disperse the heavenly tribulation, he could not use it to refine his physical body and saint power. This guy is actually using the heavenly tribulation to improve himself. This is too shocking. That's right. He's really sick. When others go through the heavenly tribulation, they want to go through it quickly, but he's deliberately dawdling and using the power of the heavenly tribulation to train himself. This guy is terrifying. Some of the more powerful existences were discussing in low voices. Lan Cheng, the heavenly emperor of the Lan family, and the heavenly emperor of the Yin family looked more and more gloomy. Lu Ming took the longest time to go through the 5th heavenly tribulation. It took him a full hour. Lu Ming felt that his physical body had improved again. It was 3 times stronger than before. At the same time, his saint power had also condensed by 3 levels. If Lu Ming fought with Mingxing now, he would not need to fuse the law of primal chaos and the law of death to fight against his mountain river palm. An hour later, Lu Ming felt that the tempering effect of this heavenly tribulation on him was getting smaller and smaller. This heavenly tribulation was useless to Lu Ming. At this time, Lu Ming erupted with the power of the law. Boom! Boom! The power of Lu Ming's fist suddenly increased. He blew up a giant tiger with one punch. Next, Lu Ming blew up a creature formed by lightning with every punch that Lu Ming threw out. All 81 heavenly tribulation creatures were blown up by Lu Ming in the blink of an eye. They disappeared without a trace. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.